Welcome back. One of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place was to speak to other bike fitters and find out what keeps them motivated, what keeps them turning up every day, and what informs their critical decision making. Today we've got a great conversation with bike fitter James Roberts from Fit2Ride, which is full of gems. In fact, it was so full of the good stuff, we split it into 2 episodes. Part 1, we discuss the most difficult bike fits we encounter, the hardest riders fit, and what kind of values do we want to convey to our riders. In Part 2, we start by discussing James's experience with fitting professional riders, the lost art of feeling, if bike fitting is more art than science, and finishing, as always, with some practical tips for you to implement in your bike fit. So grab yourself a cuppa, settle in for another deep dive into the mysterious world of bike fitting.
Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bike Fit and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry.
I'm not going to argue the toss about whether you want to be 2 millimeters higher or 2 millimeters lower, because we know you're in the spot that's it's about function, and my definition of function is always, can you do the thing or use the shoe or sit on the seat or use the pedal system without getting a consequence? Because if you're using it free of consequence, then that's pretty much it. But yeah, big picture and collaboration, because you can't prescribe, or I don't think you can prescribe.
Yeah, what I'm getting from you is going back to the communication thing, just getting riders to come away from the nuance and very singular detail of a number, that real kind of head down, tunnel vision number view, and getting them to sit back and look at the bigger picture. What is important to you? What does it mean to ride your bike? And that's going to be very different for a professional rider and a weekend rider. And your decisions will be based on those priorities. If you're a professional and you're in the winter season right now, then maybe you can afford the time to try something different to maybe have a greater gain later on. But if it's race week and you're still trying to tweak things and Flanders is next week, then
that's not the time.
Yeah, or maybe there are no magic gains.
I always encourage people to kind of to find under supervision. If that doesn't sound too kind of restrictive, but find your limit. Find your limits and understand your limits, because, and I think the younger you are when you do that, the better it serves you as if it's your career. The younger you are when you start to understand the limits of the position, how the position works and how the position should feel and how the output should feel and how the movement should feel. The younger you kind of, and you work out crank length, seat height, seat shape, foot position, the more you kind of try that stuff at the beginning, the better it serves you when you get deeper into it. I think it's difficult, because if you're, I've got riders who I see who are 16 and they've got an agent, which just still boggles me a bit. But so they're on they're in the BC pathways. So there's always some external pressure, and it can feel. And I totally get that when you're in those kind of junior and youth pathways, it can, and even up to and the other 23s, it can feel, that external pressure can feel suffocating, and you kind of don't want to. You're in a place where you don't really want to. You become risk averse because you don't want to try X, because it might. Well, what if it makes me slower? But if you don't do it then, when are you going to do it? Because if things pan out as you want them to, if you don't find your limits, if you don't kind of start exploring the things that work and the things that don't work at that stage, when are you going to do it? Because if you kind of follow the path of least resistance, and all of a sudden you're on the podium program and you're going to the Olympics, or you're riding Flanders or Tour de France or under 23 Worlds, or you're doing World's Time Trial, it doesn't get any easier the further you go down that path to kind of to explore that stuff, because then the heat really is on, and it's I've had that conversation quite a lot with a lot of people, and some of them are more. And I can think of a couple who are. I think of one in particular who's kind of really. He's only young, but he's really curious about the fit and how it affects everything, and and it will serve him well. But I can equally think of others who are kind of quite, and it's not even certainly at junior level, it's often not the rider, it's the parent or the coach, and it's like, oh well, don't want to do anything in case it fucks it up.
Yeah.
And actually, the way to think about it is, well, if we do this, you might fly. And if you do this at the right time of year and it doesn't work, unless you've had a hacksaw out and chopped something in half, you can move it back.
Yeah.
But the point is, where your limits are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing that. And I always encourage, and I do that with normal riders, with racers, with people who just ride once a week. It's like, just, if you ride it and you settle into it, then, and your seat's in this position, then, and you're a little bit curious, just nudge it up 3 millimeters, because I've told you on the basis of 2.5 hours that that's your kind of range. This is your box. And I think, look, and I don't know how you get there, but I know how I get there. And I know that when you talk about range, and that little space that people can operate in, I am never guessing. And I'm not measuring it. I'm not using a number to dictate it, but the functional measurements that I use in terms of movement and feel and observation, I know where the range is. Yeah. That is not guesswork. Yeah. So you are in this box. So explore the box. Yeah. Like, you can go to here, or you can go to here, and find out, find where you get the things that you're looking for in terms of sensation, in terms of output, in terms of, comfort, whatever your priority is. And I don't know whether, I think some people listen to me sometimes and think, well, surely he should know where that is. Surely he should know whether it's 795 or 798. And it's like, you see what I mean? Do you have this? I don't know. Am I making sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a great analogy on just describing both from a really big picture, but also on a, what we see on a day-to-day basis of essentially what we do is not guess, but find out where that window is. And in order to do that, you have to explore. There is no other way of figuring out where, too far is without kind of getting there. You got to make things worse before they get better. So, just like you were demonstrating with crank length, with your client in the morning, you got to find out where this is too long, this is too short, and this feels just right. It's like the Goldilocks. And
Goldilocks.
Just right. Everything's just right.
Yeah.
But the same goes for the overall, testing. It's like training programs as well. Like, how do you know if this training program is going to get you the results? You don't know how your body is going to react physiologically to that stress. So you just got to go and try it. And if it doesn't get the result that you wanted in the first place, it's still been worthwhile. It's still an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's the learning, because then you know where you can't go. You know where you can't go. You know what doesn't work. Look, and it is quite simple what we do, because it's a space. You've got reach, you've got drop, you've got foot separation, you've got seat height. It's like, that's your box, and you can pull the box around in any way you want, but it doesn't have. It's not the possibilities are not infinite. So find your limits. just play about with the box. Some people are scared to move things like this. Well, I haven't touched it since I saw you, and
5 years ago.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, how's it feel? Well, I've got this really bad saddle sore. I've not moved anything. But I spoke to a guy who's a coach, and he's a client of mine, and he'd had a bike fit I think it was about 5 years ago. And he was kind of almost like he'd not moved anything. He was like religious about, I'm not moving anything. It's like, this is the fit. He'd had some issues, so we got in touch, and he lives closer to you than to me. So it was a long distance thing, and someone said to me, "Will you speak to him?" So we had a call, and we kind of talked about things, and he said, "Well, I've had this fit, but I've not moved anything. I daren't move anything." And I said, "Well, send me some clips." So he sent me some clips, and I kind of looked at him, and we had another conversation. I said, "Well, you want to try, why don't you do this? Try this." And he said, "Well, how much?" I said, "Well, just do it until it feels like this." And we ended up with quite a dramatic change. And he said to me, on the other side of this process, which probably went on, we're back and forth for 2 or 3 weeks. And he said, I dared touch that fit, and now I've dropped my saddle by 35 mil. But we got to a really, really good place. But it was by him understanding what he was trying to feel. It's people understanding how a bicycle should feel. That's what I try to communicate. So I think it's kind of, I think you have to ride. I wouldn't personally. I don't think I trust a bike fitter who didn't ride quite a lot. Because I don't think you have the insight into what it should feel like. Because it's, in the end, it's like, it's not about how it looks. And you kind of see people on TV and you go, "Oh, his seat's too high, too low, too far back, too far forward, bars too." Yeah. You see stuff on the internet. Instagram. Well, so-and-so saddle is too low, and so-and-so is pronating with his left foot and not engaging the power joint and all that jazz. But in the end, what I've kind of discovered is that actually, until you have someone in front of you and you start moving things about and exploring limits and talking to them and finding out how they move, you can't. It might look like a car crash on television, but it may be optimal. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because you don't. Because it's not about the aesthetic. And I think that's if I think back 10 years to how I thought about things 10 years ago, it was much more about, well, this looks like that. The aesthetic is this, and I want it to look like that. And I want to change the aesthetic. And actually, it's not the aesthetic that's important; it's the sensation that's important. We are in the weeds here, aren't we? But I think it's like being a translate. It's like, I'm going to help you translate what this bicycle is telling you. Set of things that we want you to feel this, and actually, you're feeling the opposite because X, Y, and Z. Some days it seems like the simplest thing in the world. You have those days where you must have you go to work, see someone on a bike, and they may have 10 issues, but you have clarity, and you see everything crystal clear, and you kind of, the communication is good, and the information flows, and the rhythm's there, and the flow's there, and it's just and everything just goes perfectly, and it's done, perfect almost, or as close as it can be, and it's just and it's simple. It seems simple, but I could have seen the same thing when I'd done 50 fits or 20 fits or 30 fits, and it would have seemed like an absolute jigsaw puzzle beyond comprehension. But now it seems easy, and that's what I really enjoy now. Those days when you have, and it's not all the time, because some days you think, can't do anything with this, but when you have that flow and that kind of clarity, it's just like, it is like magic, and it's not science, is it? Because the bike industry will present it's like and I don't know whether it still does actually, but going back 20 years or 15 years or 10 years, the science definitely this is science.
Yeah.
This is like evidence based
Yeah.
and it's art because it's about movement. And just as I saw some stuff on Instagram today of Femke Bol, Netherlands 400 meter hurdles and training, and just like supreme athlete, but there was no one following around with like motion capture devices or sensors or telling her what a foot angle or what a hip angle was, because it's about movement. And by contrast, I saw some footage from it was on Egan Bernal's Instagram the other day, and they'd been not far from here at Leeds Beckett, and it looked like they'd been in the biomechanics lab there, and he had 50 sensors all over him. And I looked at it and I thought, to me, and this is an opinion, and alternative opinions are available clearly, but I think that's misunderstanding the problem. But it's that thing that you talked about, which is that, well, we have to be certain. We're looking for it to be absolutely, so we absolutely categorically know it's the best. And I honestly don't think that really exists in this business.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with the bike. And it's like when you go to see a physio, like, do they hook you up to sensors and like motion capture devices? You go see a doctor, they don't hook you up to a motion capture device. They're kind of asking you questions and feeling your body and watching you move. And it's a similar kind of approach, I think, that, some bike fitters take. Just going back to something you said earlier as well that made me kind of think, which was completely slipped my mind. I think we went so far in the weeds. I was like,
I have clearly talked to you.
It was really good though. If I remember it, I'll bring it back out.
You'll have to listen back to it, I think.
But I think it was just I don't know what it was, but it'll
come back.
But I think you're right. We've got a bit of a challenge, I think, our little industry, getting people to understand like kind of what we do, and
I think it's changed.
Oh yeah. Oh, certainly from when we started bike fitting. Like, just look at the changes. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's changed, and I think most of the people who I respect and think, I'd probably trust that person to look at me on a bike. I think most of those people, and probably there's a bit of confirmation bias here, but I think most of those people aren't measuring. I think that, and that's the change. Fundamentally that's the change, isn't it? It's like the change from the stuff that's based around numbers to the stuff that isn't based around numbers, and there's a kind of whole lot of grey area in between where you can do a bit of both, or you can use this bit of tech,
or just not being reliant on it.
Yeah, and not just watching the little stick man on the on here, but actually watching what's in front of you. It has changed, and I think it's changed for the better. But I think it's difficult to, if you think about how that or why we kind of all end up with numbers, it's because it's easier to package.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're training, I went through back when Cycle Fit were doing training. I did a week. That was how I tied up the knowledge that I had and kind of packaged it to a point where I felt comfortable, at least.
I'm ready.
Sitting. But then you start to learn, don't you? But it's like but you have these things to hang your hat on.
Yeah.
These are not, and I think, and out of the people that I know who started around the same time, some of them are definitely still doing the same thing. And I just, it's not planned, and it's definitely, I don't plan things, to be honest. It's just, it just happens.
Yeah.
But you do more and you see more and you kind of change the way you see things, and then all of a sudden you realise that you're a million miles away from where you started.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult if you think about training, and you think about the IBFI and kind of the certification and how we rank and how the customer knows that they're not going to have a bad experience. That's like that is a whole can of worms. That is a whole can of worms. And I think people...
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely not going to go there tonight.
No, because then we will literally be here all night. But you see what I mean? Because it's not... It's very difficult to... Because the way that you work, I think, and the way that... And I know the way that I work is much more organic. And a couple of... over the years, a couple of people have kind of said to me, "Oh, would you consider taking any... like having staff?" And for many reasons, I'm just like, no, because I can't, because it's like this stuff that you don't even know you're seeing. But you see it. You go in and it's there, and you can see what's happening. And trying to explain that, or like put that in a textbook, or put that in a kind of course or an instruction manual. That is tricky. That is tricky. And it's and in the end, the only thing that people say to me, "Oh, well, is there anyone you recommend?" People who are in different parts of parts of the country. Is there anyone you'd recommend? And that's hard as well, because I don't know how a lot of people work. And I know there are people I definitely kind of probably don't recommend. But it's more, and I always just say, like, read the reviews. Like, get on Google and read the reviews, like proper reviews, and find out.
It's super hard. I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons why I started this podcast series selfishly at the beginning, was just I really wanted to. Well, actually, I really wanted to speak to other bike fitters, because, like, what do other people do? Like, what do they do?
Yeah.
Like, do they see the same things? Do they feel the same things? Like why does all this other stuff exist? It's like, there's definitely some people who are like, yeah, I'm a retool fitter, or I'm a
master level 5. It's so difficult. If you ask me to write down 10 names on a sheet of paper of people who I kind of, if you said, I'm going to give you a list of 10 people you've got to go and see, who would they be? So I could do that. But then there'd be hundreds of names not on that sheet of paper, people who I don't know and have never heard of, who are working in different ways in different parts of the country, in shops and physiotherapists, and some of them are probably amazing. It's such a minefield, and it goes back a bit to the kind of the fit that guy had not touched for 5 years, even though he probably didn't feel great. It was like, well, it's got to be right, and it's like, perhaps I'll get used to it, or perhaps this is how it's this is how it's got to be. And I think there's a lot of, because it's so habitual, people kind of get put in a space, and it's like, well, you ride it and it feels how it feels, and all of a sudden you think, oh yeah, that must be right, because someone's told you it's right. And it is that. And unless you, and I think you said right at the beginning, which is some time ago now, and I do apologise. I do apologise to anyone who's had to listen to the entire thing. But you said right at the beginning, what's the takeaway? What's the if you had to kind of give a tip to someone, I think the kind of tip is, if you're thinking about your position on the bike, it's like, test your limits. Find your take responsibility, or find someone who can help you to find your limits. But don't just accept that because your knee angle's 142 degrees, or because someone's just said to you, well, it's this stem length, and don't just accept that it's right. It's like, be curious, like, explore, test, try things, because that's the way that you find out. And it's much easier if you've got someone like you or like me who can help you navigate through that kind of what can seem like a maze, because it's having the sense of direction. Because otherwise you're just like moving things or changing things like completely randomly. You've got to know what you're looking for, but do be curious, and do test, and do be.
I think that's a great tip, and I think everyone should. If there's one thing you take away from the podcast, then go and test stuff, but test it with knowledge. Because I think that's the difficulty that people find, as you said, like so much of bike fitting is an art form for us because we're seeing stuff and working with things organically. And so it becomes difficult for the rider to, how do I quantify like an art form? Like how do I actually start to make decisions? So
it's difficult because it seems simple. Because to you it seems simple. To me, and it's remembering that actually it's only because we've done however many you've done or how many people you've seen that then the simplicity kicks in. So it's guidance, just a little bit of steering here and there. Yeah.
Oh, I remembered what I was going to ask you. It was, like how often do you get people saying after you've made the change, they say, I didn't know it could be that good. Like, I just didn't realize it could feel that good. And it's that case in point of like, if you don't try something, if you don't explore it, you just don't know how good it could be. And you're just going to get stuck with,
I think that
position.
Yeah, and I think reasonably often.
Yeah.
Reasonably, pleasingly, reasonably often. But I think that it's that, if you think about, and this is what always fascinates me, because if you think about how many times do people walk into foundations and say, and you kind of sit down, and I presume that at some point you kind of sit down and right at the beginning just have a chat, and people often say, I don't think I'm far off.
Yeah.
I think it's it's okay. I think but I might benefit from a little tweak or whatever. But no one walks in to see you or to see me thinking, you know what, my seat's 40 millimeters.
Yeah.
50, somewhere, a lot, 35, 40 millimeters, too high or too low or whatever. Too high normally, clearly. But you know what? Rather than drop it myself, I'll go and have a chat with James for the morning, and he can put it down 40 mil because no one thinks that. But those days, not often, but those days do happen on a semi-frequent basis with people who have been riding bikes for a long time, coaching, racing, and it's like, why are we here? And and if you think about seat height, like the thing that everyone thinks about, because that's what everyone thinks about when they come in. It's like, is my seat too high, too low, or Goldilocks, perfect, just in the middle? And if you think about how seat height kind of evolves, so I'm 53, how old are you?
I'm 42 now.
If you bought a road bike at 20, so you might have gone into Condor. You go into Condor, you buy a Condor road frame, nice frame. You don't really know. The guy, it might be, you might not know what size you want. So the guy sticks you against the counter, like puts you on the bike. Certainly going back when I was 20, there was no flipping turbo train. It was just like lean against the counter and put your foot on the frame. Oh, your seat wants to go, your seat wants to go about there, right? Okay, or whatever. But obviously that's like heel on pedal or foot or whatever. But that can be done in a variety of ways that can really screw it up. And so you have this number, and it might, like 73 centimeters. That's your seat height. So then you start out at 20 at 73 centimeters, and you habituate to that measurement, and then you change your cleats or you change your shoes and you change your saddle and you change your bike. But that 73 centimeters is kind of lodged in your mind as like, that's my seat height. And you might move it, days when it feels a bit high or your back hurts or your knee hurts or whatever, you might go up a little bit, like that much, or you might go down a little bit. But that 73 centimeters or that 75 centimeters or whatever the number is kind of somewhere in your subconscious that's etched. That's your kind of range. And actually, sometimes it isn't your range. Sometimes it's not even in the right bloody postcode. But it's this number that, so you see what I mean? Or you kind of, or you buy a bike and you go to a cycling club, or if you're a junior, you have a coach, and your coach sets you just like, this is your seat height. And people carry those numbers, those basic measurements around for years and years. And it's that kind of appreciation of knowing that it's fluid.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people don't the fluidity of what we do, and you change.
Yeah.
And and if you don't, so you have, and I've seen, and when you see someone who's in the 60s, who's had the same seat height since 1973 and been at the Olympics. And I'm thinking of someone specific, and it's like, well, how long have you had that seat height? Well, since 1973 or whatever. And how old are you now? Well, I'm 67. And have you shrunk? Well, yeah, I think so. And actually, well, shall we move it down a little bit? Well, how much? Well, about that much, 2 centimeters or 15 mil, or if you have to be a guess. Well, I don't think I always tell everyone not to move the seat by more than 2 millimeters. It's like, but it's that. But you don't respond to your own change.
Yeah.
And you're a young man at 42, and when you get to 53, you'll be thinking, my seat feels I didn't used to feel like this. This seat feels a bit high, and you start to.
Yeah.
And then you start to move things a little bit, and it's like, but it's just that it's like being responsive to the change.
Yeah,
which is
I think my seat height's definitely come down like 30 mil or something for the last 20 years. So.
That's what you're right. When we were talking before, it's like you don't. I just really like to kind of beat myself up from time to time and just remind myself how little I understand. Because just if you fall into the trap of thinking you've got it, because some days you have those days when it's like crystal. And it's magic, and that's those are the best days. And then the next day you'll just kind of
someone will come along and remind you very swiftly
that you don't understand, or that you've done something that's, you post stuff on social media. It's like these are the things that we've done that have been successful, and actually it's like there are stories behind stories when you kind of. When you've done stuff that's not worked, it's like, well, we tried it and it's not worked, so then we try. So, but again, it's nothing's wasted, is it? Because you learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not easy someday.
I think that's probably a good place to leave the podcast for the moment. But thank you so much for your time, James.
Thank you for listening. Well done to anyone who's got through the full 2 hours, 6 minutes.
It's full of gems, so much learning. But if people want to see you in person, James, where can they find you? What's the best place to go?
They can find me on the internet.
You've got a shiny new website, haven't you?
Well, it's shiny. Yes, yeah. Big shout out to the man who helped me make that. But www.fit2ride.cc. All right, I'm on Instagram as Fit2Ride Bike Fit.
Lovely. And if you're in pain or you want just to feel a little bit better, or you don't know where you are, go see James if you're in the middle of the country, and go find out.
Not the middle. Well, middle of the country.
Middle of the country?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Geographically, middle of the United Kingdom, I think. Yeah, that would be close. Yeah. Anyway, north of Hertfordshire.
Good stuff, man.
If you made it to the end of this episode, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, do leave us a rating or review, as this really helps other riders find our podcast too, and motivates us to keep making more episodes. Thanks for your support, and catch you on the next one.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.